Thank you for auditing Professor Skye's Record Review, the always positive new music review show hosted by a professor of French, who 2 Thursdays in a row now I am reviewing a Canadian EP. Totally unintentional, it's not going to be a new tradition, but I'm very happy to be reviewing the album by the Suuns, or the Suuns, I don't know how you pronounce them, S-U-U-N-S, and their EP, Fiction. Over 2 years ago, before I started this channel, I just happened to randomly stumble on their previous album, Felt, and I enjoyed it a lot. It was one of my favorite albums of 2018, one of the few new music albums that I listened to at all in 2018, and I was very happy to see that they released something now. I must say that this new release is a lot more avant-garde, a lot less rock and rolly than their previous stuff, but what I really like is that it seems to be that they're expanding their musical palette. And part of what I'm trying to do with this channel is expand my musical palette. And in particular, in the area of electronic dance music, or just electronic music. I don't think you can really dance to this album, or their previous one too well. You know, electronic music really is the great frontier. I think it's, hip-hop and electronic music are both just expanding and creating new subgenres faster than people can categorize them. And I think that's where so much artistic vitality is located. In particular, now last week I reviewed Cup, who are not from Quebec, but I had the Quebec flag behind me. This group is actually from Montreal. Montreal, which is probably my favorite city in the world. If I've been to Paris recently, Paris is my favorite city, but definitely Montreal is my favorite city in North America. It's an amazingly vibrant city dominated by language and culture, and great food. Not just poutine, smoked meat is also quite good, and even Montreal bagels. Basically, when you go to Montreal, you get all of the great things about North America with many of the great things about Europe all in one. And as a French professor, I get to take my students there every other year when there's no pandemic. So I've always had this kind of ear to try to hear what's happening in Quebec. And I must say that it seems that it's a microcosm of this explosion of electronic music, and in particular, smart artistic electronic music. Just in the last 2 years since I started this channel, we've had kind of the cool disco electronic music of Chromeo, that's out of Montreal. We had the orchestral epic techno of Apache or Apache. We had the vomit step of Snails, and probably my favorite of all of them was the wonderful and expressive Fly Pan Am, which also had the benefit of being actually in French. And I think Fly Pan Am is the group that is closest related to the Suuns, or the Suuns, as I would say. In both cases, it's like using electronic music not to sort of have a crutch where you can have some kind of repeated rhythm or some kind of simple thing to create a bass. It's more expansive. It's having a place to start, but then almost like a krautrockish, very open, spacey, glitchy, distorted, sort of ugly, cute music. Sorry, I'm getting text messages from my colleagues. I'm gonna turn my computer on Do Not Disturb. Yes, there will be a final, but not for this video. So if we look at this actual album, it's only 20 minutes, and if you've never listened to the Suuns or the Suuns, it's a really good idea to listen to this. I'd say listen to this and listen to Felt. You really can't go wrong if you like what I just described, like music that's electronic but also acoustic that's mixed in with distortion. And really what this is this album feels to me like it's a piece of art. It's like something that you're supposed it's not something you're necessarily supposed to feel or even something you're supposed to think about. It's more something you're supposed to kind of experience and look at. And I think the cover of the album actually communicates this fairly well. This is the cover here. And you see that it's just a pink square, but it's a little bit interesting, kind of nice sort of the fact that the title and the band name are typed as opposed to handwritten. There's kind of a weird juxtaposition between sort of regularity and irregularity, and it's visually pleasing. It's a single solid shape enclosed in black, but it's a little bit hard to read. But if seeing this, if you see that and you had this feeling of well, that's interesting, I sort of get what they're going at, I sort of see what it is, that's kind of what this album is like. It's like going into a modern art gallery that is interesting and successful. It doesn't necessarily immediately blow your mind, but the art that's there is vital, is vibrant, and is interesting. I don't know if it's fair to compare music to art, but I just did it. So what I want to do is I want to go through this EP. It's only 20 minutes long. It's very cohesive. It has sort of kind of fuzzy edges, kind of like that image. And then in the center, there's a couple very well written, very well produced songs that are just awesome. And I'm going to play them for you soon. But just in general, it has this nice cohesive feeling of just 20 minutes of just a well-formulated album. It's a very well-formulated thought that they put out here. I didn't enjoy it as much as I enjoyed Felt, but I don't think this is even made to be enjoyed in the same way that Felt was made to be enjoyed. This feels more just like a single canvas. Okay, so it starts off with the song Look. And this is kind of funny because the last album started with a track called Look No Further, which is sort of like a avant-garde cover of Get Your Freak On. At least that's how I read that one. But this track, Look, is very noisy, kind of unpleasant at times. The words are very unclear. Throughout this entire EP, the words are quite unclear. But at times, this album plays a lot with resolving melodies, often descending melodies, and sort of starting off at a point of dissonance and finding some kind of stability, stasis, some kind of harmony. And in that way, this sounds sort of like a glitchy hipster call to prayer. I know that sounds weird, but if you listen to this, I think you'll know what I'm talking about. The way that it sounds, it reminds you of a call to prayer, much like I heard in my second favorite city to visit in the world, Sarajevo. But it's really nice, and it has these, it's really nicely produced. In particular, the way the vocals are kind of clipped all throughout the album. The vocals are manipulated and clipped, and the drums are often compressed and just a little bit off. And then they end on this word machine, and then the machine repeats, and then the machine becomes like a machine beat, becomes like the word machine, and an electronic drum beat happens underneath. What's nice is that this feeling that I had listening to this, that it reminded me of some kind of Arabic call to prayer, is then followed up with the next track, Breathe, which is a completely instrumental song, which just sounds like a kind of modern North African or Arabic music group, just making music that sounds completely like it would be at home anywhere in North Africa or in the Arab world. The string instruments, the rhythmic play. It turns out this is a collaboration with Jerusalem is in My Heart, who I don't know anything about these people, by the way. So I'm doing this whole thing where I'm trying to discover about this scene, and I'm probably only talking to people who are in that scene, but I know nothing about it. So I'm probably being very frustrating to people, but I don't even know how to pronounce the name of the band. But I'm a well-meaning idiot, and my ignorance is profound. So it turns out that this collaborator is of Lebanese descent and lives in Montreal. And if you don't know, Montreal is a great hotbed of Lebanese culture. Some of the best friends I've ever made from Montreal have been Lebanese origin. And so apparently this is like a song that is dedicated, and the sales went to try to help people in Lebanon who are Syrian refugees. So an interesting idea, but it plays really nicely. So you have this first track that feels like a call to prayer, and then a very Arabic sounding song, and then the next track is called Pray. And this is where it really gets going. These electronic bloops that are super interesting, really cool, haunting voice that's manipulated. It almost sounds like a robot yodeling. So what does that sound like to you? A robot yodeling. Well, I think we're going to hear here. The drums come in, it sounds so cool. The sequencer that's going on here is often a little bit behind the rhythm, but then the second section, it gets a lot more in sync. There's this guitar and this bass, and it's both sparse and driving, it has this great driving feel to it as well. It's just such a beautifully constructed song. I'm going to play you some of it. I'm probably going to get copyright striked, but maybe they'll get some money for it. I don't know. Here's Pray by the Suuns. Do you hear the robot yodeling? And then the drums come in. You hear it? You ready? You hear great resolution and dissonance, even some wind chimes. And then it just keeps building and keeps going. There's that really strong guitar line I was talking to you about. Da-dong, da-dong, da-dong. See, who else is making music better than this right now? Did you hear that? Damn, it is. And then it goes right into the next track, the title track, Fiction, which is a very similar song in a way. It's got these whispered voices that are very clipped. Again, the drums come in and they're super compressed and really funky. I'm going to play you some of this as well. This has these voices that are just kind of constantly resolving in this track. Here we go. And this is a lot more similar to the work on Felt that we heard before. But this kind of feeling of like these kind of blasts, this kind of like machine-like creation of these vacillating between notes is pretty consistent on this whole AP as well. You know, you hear in the back that kind of like 808 Casaba sound in the back. And, you know, it's very jarring. It's very aggravating all the way throughout. Like, they're never keeping you totally comfortable. But while this aggravating stuff is happening, the whole thing is just about these, like, this resolution of all these lines. Just great. Just great. This is great. This is a great band. And I don't even know how to pronounce their names. Suuns. I'm just going to call them Suuns, okay? So I apologize if that's not how you say it. The next track is called Death. Maybe it's a low light. I mean, it's not a low light. It's fine. What's funny is this has a female singer on it. And the first time I listened to this album, I thought it was a female singer the whole way through. It's just a very kind of soft, high voice all the way throughout. Very noisy guitar, but it's a song about death. I don't know. Songs about death don't really do it for me. It's nice. It's not bad. It fits in with the atmosphere of the whole album. And then the album ends with a song called Trouble Every Day. And I'm going to take you through my little path, my little journey with this song, Trouble Every Day. So when I hear Trouble Every Day, the first thing I think of is not a song. I think of a movie. It's a movie by Claire Denis, who is a French filmmaker who makes amazingly good movies, very unsettling movies. And so Trouble Every Day is this like psychotic, sexual, gross, blood-ridden nightmare of a movie. It's absolutely awesome. It fits really well actually with the atmosphere of this album. I don't think that's intentional for reasons I'll get into in a second. But it's just a great movie. It'll ruin your day. It's that kind of movie. The music's actually done by the Tindersticks. It's just a wonderful movie. But as I was listening to this song and I was listening to these lyrics, and he's talking about, you know, television and the things that he's seeing on television, it's basically just his voice, and it's really affected and manipulated. I realized that, like, no, wait, this is something else. And just the way he said this following line, "Take your TV tube and eat it," I was like, oh no, this has to be a Frank Zappa song. Just the way he said, "Take your tube and eat it." Now, Frank Zappa is often defined by his amazing virtuoso musicians and the virtuosity of his construction and the absurdity of what he's saying. And so to have this song, which is just like a noise experiment, and the thing that makes it Zappa is just the words, I realized that, like, oh, okay, so this is a Zappa song. I'm just going to briefly... You'll see I put the Zappa biography back there. It's kind of a funny thing because that's the only music my parents listened to, legitimately. The only thing they listened to was Frank Zappa. That's all I grew up with. They maybe listened a little bit to like Yellow Submarine by the Beatles, but in general, and I mean like the movie Yellow Submarine, but in general it was just Frank Zappa. Like my dad met the drummer Jimmy Carl Black. I think he might have like handed him something. The story gets a little bit weird. Every time he tells it, it's a little bit different. But still, so like I grew up with Zappa, but I never grew up knowing what the songs were. I just kind of heard them. So that's what was fun. You know, this song, Trouble Every Day, this is their second album. It was on their first album, Freak Out, but somebody stole my copy of Freak Out. You know, it's this early Frank Zappa, kind of before he went full in on the crazy instrumentation, full in on the just virtuosity above all else. And it's this song that's an amazing like blues song that's all about watching TV and getting anxious and hating the TV and watching race riots on television and getting more and more anxious on television. The election has been going on for the past 2 days, and all I've been doing is staring at the TV anxiously. And like when the song came on, it was like I'm just sitting here watching TV and getting anxious, and I can't take it, and there's trouble every day, and there's all these lyrics all about race riots and injustice, and it's crazy, and it's great. And what Suuns have managed to do is they took a Zappa song and they separated it from its musicianship, which is weird. Because that's like sort of the main thing about Frank Zappa for a lot of people. But in so doing, it emphasizes Zappa's power as a punk god. And I don't mean punk like affect. I mean like a god of like saying things that are upsetting and saying things in a true way and not caring about what other people think. Like he's the most FU punk, I think, in music history. And it's not because of his affect, it's because of his actions and his music. And so I really like that idea. I like what they're able to do here, just making a Zappa cover where you don't feel like it's based on somebody, like all the craziness of Frank Zappa. All of that is taken out. The drummer does come in at some point and does this great jazz drumming. It doesn't sound like Jimmy Carl Black. It doesn't sound like the original song at any point, but it does what a good what a good cover does, which is reinterpret, recontextualize for a new generation. And they even hold off on the chorus until the end, the chorus, which is the most noticeable thing of the song. But I will say one thing. There's a famous line from the song, from 1966, mind you, where Frank Zappa says, I'm not black, but a whole lot of times I wish I could say I wasn't white. And it's funny, because it's good that the Suuns didn't include this line. It's too much now. It's too on the nose. It's too representative of the sort of white guilt and this current moment that we're living in. But I think they probably would want to say it if they could get away with it. I think a lot of us would say that if we thought we could say it without seeming patronizing or seeming self-hating or seeming self-destructive. Interesting idea. Its absence was quite noted. So there you go. You've watched me talk about this album for almost 20 minutes. You should go out and enjoy it. Check out Felt. And just check out whatever the hell's happening in Montreal. And if you can, go to that city, okay? San Francisco is boring, okay? New York is boring compared to Montreal. It is like the most amazing place. It's awesome. It's a great place. Okay, and there's lots of good music. Well, until next time, I'm going to go back to watching the TV and taking the TV tube and eating it. There's the camera.